there. You can click on it and we'll directly to the application portal and you can fill it out. But we really ask that you wait until Monday to do that, just because we are going to flush the system before with the official launch, which will be Monday morning. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and get started. I'm going to complete this application as if I was filling this out for the first time. So typically you would have whoever the center manager or the home care provider owner, whoever the official person in charge of the facility can answer these questions, should be the one that's filling out this application. So
hey, Karen, there was a question if you're able to maybe zoom that in a little bit and have it be a little bit bigger.
Yeah. Oh, maybe that's a little too big. How about that? Is that better?
I think that's probably a little bit better. Thank you.
Okay, great. Okay, so I'm going to fill this out as if I was an applicant for the first time. This system uses your email as your credentials to log in. So you'll put in your name, first name, last name, email address, and whatever your company name is. I'm going to just this is a demonstration, so this information is going to be, I'm going to make it up as we go. And then phone number, so our eligibility reviewers can get in touch with you if we need to, and then create a unique password, similar characteristics of a typical password, and hit sign up. And it'll take you to another screen here with some information about the program. On the left-hand side, we just have some general information about the Child Care Stabilization Program. And then we have a couple of features to assist with those who may not want to fill out the application online. There's options here to print the application. I will say that with printing the application and mailing it in, that is a little bit of a slower process. So we highly recommend that you use the online portal. It's the fastest way to process your application, but we do have a mail-in feature if you would prefer to do it that way. The application itself is pretty simple. You can just fill in basic information about your center or your home provider information. And depending on whether or not you're center or home, we have two separate applications here. So I'm going to click on the center application. And at any point during the application process, you can get in touch with us at this hotline number if you have questions about the application or if you have questions about what to include. We do have a call center available to help you with completing the application. And you can also email us at iastabilize@tetratech.com, and one of our eligibility reviewers or one of our call center staff will be able to help you complete the application. So I'm going to go ahead and get started with the Child Care Center, but again, you would pick the one that applies to you. So if you're a center provider or if you're a home provider, you would select the type of program that you offer. So we'll start here. The first thing it asks for is your provider ID number. I'm going to, this one is not a real number, but so, and again, this is all in test mode right now. So we've already used 55555 over and over again, so we can't use that one. That after you put in your unique provider ID number, it will take you to this page right here where you'll have different steps to complete the application. First, you'll fill out general information, your program name, your location address. This has to be in the state of Iowa, the actual facility address, location, state, zip code, and then your mailing address if it's different from your facility address. And the mailing address can be located outside of the state of Iowa, but the actual facility itself needs to be in in the state in order to be eligible for this program. So operator or director name, whoever is filling out the application, email address, phone, and then the application asks for some demographic information, gender, ethnicity, and some other questions about ethnicity. There's a drop-down box here. You can fill this out, or you can select prefer not to respond, and then you can go on and save. If you don't fill out this information, you'll get a pop-up bar here saying you're missing fields, and you've got to complete the fields until you've got everything filled out completely, and then you can move on to the next step. I also wanted to point out that I can see there's some questions popping up in the chat, and we have several folks that are helping to manage those questions. So as those are popping up, we'll have somebody in there to answer your questions, and then we'll have a full Q&A at the end of the demonstration. So, as you complete this general information, I'm going to just as you complete this information, you can mailing addresses is different. You'll see, I think we're still missing some fields here, but as you complete the information, these boxes will start to highlight green as all of the fields are completed. And once you have all of the steps highlighted in green, you can then move on to the next, you can submit the application. At any point during the application, you can also submit a question. This is kind of like a chat feature. So if you get to a step where you're unsure of what to do, or if you've got questions about what type of documentation to provide, you can hit cases here, and hit new. And then you can basically email our staff with a subject and a description of what your question is, and then you can save it, and someone will respond to your questions. So you can either use the hotline if you have something very specific about the documentation or one of the fields or something like that. You can use this feature, and what's nice about this is that it's tied directly to your application. So you know, the eligibility reviewer or whoever our call center representative is answering these will be able to see exactly, you know, what the question is and where you are in your application process. So let me go back. All right. Now, program status. This is in the next section. Does your program have a current center license? To be eligible for the program, it should be yes. And include your QRS level. And again, you know, this is all specific to your, you know, your program. What is the current status of your program? We do get some questions about this. I know I've had some questions about this. If your center or your facility is currently closed or temporarily closed, you can choose that option and then just give an explanation of the reason for the closure. And those facilities are still eligible for this program. So even if you're temporarily closed, you can still provide, or you can still receive assistance through this program. We just request a little bit of additional information. So give details about why the facility is closed, maybe reduced revenue due to, you know, COVID shutdowns, whatever the reason is. If you are if the facility is currently closed, as you fill out this application, you would provide information about the most recent what the status was right before you closed operations. So you would provide what your hours of operations were at the time of when you were open, what type of program that you provided, and then your capacity of when you were in operation. So for the rest of the application, though, just for demonstration purposes, I'm going to say that we're open. And we're open Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. You would select from the check boxes here whatever days you're open, and then in hours of operations, maybe it's 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. And then you would select whatever programs whatever program types that you provide at your facility. You'd also include the license capacity of your program. So just for ease, we're going to say it's 100. We have 25 infants, 25 toddlers, 25 preschoolers, and 25 school age. And we know that the enrollment fluctuates probably daily. So, but this is pretty much an average or an estimate of what your current enrollment is right now. And again, if you're temporarily closed, you would put in here what your enrollment was at the time right before you closed. And then if it was different, let's say your average enrollment was higher before January of 2020, before COVID, the COVID pandemic period began, you would include that here. I'm going to keep it the same just for ease. And then in this section here, we're asking about financial loss as a result of COVID-19. As you know, this program is funded through the American Rescue Plan Act, and so the intention is to provide support to programs that have experienced an economic loss as a result of COVID-19. So we do ask some questions in here about financial loss due to COVID. So one of the first questions is, have you experienced an overall financial loss? The answer is yes. You're eligible for the program. However, you can also skip through some of these questions if your facility provides, if you have an enrollment of more than 25% of children who are on child care assistance. So if out of the 100 students enrolled in your center, 25 or more are on child care assistance, you can skip through some of these questions. So let's say that, yes, we do service maybe 30% are on child care assistance. We would then ask you to input the total number of students who are on child care assistance, and then we'll cross-reference that with the enrollment numbers that are registered with the state. If not, let's say you do not have more than 25% of your enrollment receiving child care assistance, you would put no here. Later on in the application, we're going to ask for additional documentation related to your COVID hardship. You'll have to upload some documents related to, showing an economic loss. So as you can see, we finished program status. So now it is highlighted green, meaning it is completed. So we can go on to use of funds. This is where we're asking you to provide a little bit of a description about how these assistance funds are going to be used. And, a lot of these fields are for reporting purposes to part of the grant program, part of the state's reporting procedures. So in section 3, pretty simple questions. We have a couple of different categories here of how you may be using the assistance. So it could be for personnel costs, rent, mortgage, utilities, facility maintenance, those kinds of things. And then the third category here, if you're using the assistance for PPE, cleaning, sanitation services, those kinds of things. And then, any other goods and services. So if you're going to be using it for personnel costs, you check this box and you would say, let's say 25,000 estimated monthly amount for personnel costs, benefits, premium pay, requirement, retention. It's an estimate for the month, so it doesn't have to be exact. We're not asking for any additional documentation. We're just asking for you to provide an estimate of approximately what you would be using the funds for. If it's rent or mortgage, utilities, facilities maintenance, those kinds of things, you would just put in here. Again, whatever those costs are, those average monthly costs are. For PPE and sanitation supplies, again, just an estimate. Maybe you're not going to be using it for any other equipment or supplies, so you wouldn't check this box, but you'd still have to put 0 in here because it's a required field. So if you're not going to be using it for these things, you just put 0. We'll put 0 here. And, oh, we don't need that. 0. All right. And then if you plan to use funds for expenditures prior to March 11th, 2022. So if you're not going to be using these for future, but if you've got to pay for some supplies or rent, mortgage, something that's in arrears, we'd want to know if you're going to be using the funds for that. So we'll hit save. Oh, we're missing some required. I guess we have to check these little boxes as we go. Let's see. Did I get them all? Yep, got them all. Okay. So use of funds is complete, and that just provides some details on exactly what you plan on using the money for, or using the assistance for, if you're going to be using it for any arrears or anything that happened previously, just to indicate that in the application. And then we move on to application documentation. This is where if you are providing service to, if your enrollment it does not meet that 25% of children receiving childcare assistance, we would then need to see some sort of, tax documentation or profit and loss report or something like that to show the economic loss as a result of COVID-19. So here are a couple of different options to demonstrate economic loss. So you can upload copies of your tax returns, basically showing that prior to the pandemic, you were, you had a certain revenue amount, and then after the pandemic, there's a loss there. You can also show loss from a, like I said, like a profit and loss report or something like that, where you show 2020 versus 2021, or 2019 versus 2020. So we just ask for, a set of 2 documents so that we can do a comparison, a year-over-year comparison, to demonstrate that economic loss. And then you can upload the files here, pick which one you're going to upload. So tax return document 1, and then you would add that, and then tax return document 2, and you can upload that. And you can upload the files here. It's probably going to pull up something, from my desktop. And you just pick your file and then attach it. So and then on the certifications page, so once you've gone through all of this, on the certifications page, it describes what the terms are for receiving this assistance. So this is the state's way of making sure that you all understand the intention of the program and agree to the terms. So going through here, just basic understanding that this assistance will be used for eligible costs. And so you click that you certify, or that you've read through all this information and you agree, and then type in your name, and then put in the date, which is today, and hit save. Now, because I haven't filled out completed the general information, I can't hit submit yet. So you won't be able to hit submit until you fill out all of the information. And then once you do, this will show up as, I believe it's a big blue box, and you can hit that, submit, and then you'll get an automatic notification that your application has been submitted. You can also log into the program and click on My Applications. We understand that many of you, especially for centers, you've got multiple locations. So you probably have, several provider numbers under your applications tab. And so you'll see here, this is my application number. Here's my provider ID number. This is the status of my application. I haven't submitted yet because I still haven't filled out all of my general information yet. But when you do, that is, our staff receives a notification that you've submitted your application, and we have a staff waiting patiently to receive your applications. And it is our goal to communicate with you about your application within 4 or 5 days of receiving your application. So we are expecting a pretty large surge at the beginning of this program, especially based on our numbers from our webinar tonight. So once you submit your application, our team is going to be working to review all of the documentation and then process your application. And as your application moves through the review process, you'll have status updates here. We may reach out to you if there's something missing. Let's say I uploaded my tax documents for 2020, but I didn't upload anything to compare it to. Our review specialist will probably reach out and say, hey, I got your 2020 tax return. I need something else to compare it to. Can you submit your 2019 or your 2021 to demonstrate that hardship? And at that point, we'll open the application back up for you, and then you can submit the additional documentation. We like to communicate through the portal. So you may receive messages in here. You can also contact our call center. You'll most likely receive email notifications from us. So there's a lot of different ways that you can get in touch with our staff, and we can get in touch with you. But essentially, this is the best place for information on the status of your application, because as you move through the different stages, through pre-screening, through review, and then the approval process and payment process, this status will change here, and you'll be able to track where your application is throughout the process. So I saw a ton of questions coming through. So I know we've got all kinds of questions to get to. I just want to open it up to our staff, Alicia and Nick. Are there any other features on the application portal that I missed, or we need to make sure that we communicate?
Hi, no, this is Nick. You guys covered pretty much everything. So we're going to be looking at these questions that you guys have tallied here. Wendy and Ryan are here to assist as much as they can for the hour to answer questions, but do not worry. We have a running log of all the questions. We'll be logging them in, making sure that we respond back to you guys either through an open FAQ, or we'll just provide that on the state's website.
Okay. Thanks, Nick. I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing my screen for now, unless Wendy, Ryan, if you have anything else you want me to cover in the portal. All right, perfect. I'll kick it back over to you all.
I think, excuse me, I think that was great, Karen. Thank you so much. I do see tons and tons of questions going through. Some of them we have been able to answer with quick response. Some of them are currently on our FAQ right now. So I'm going to go ahead and pull that up. We're going to run through a few things, and then Wendy and I will try to kind of go through some of these questions that haven't been answered. Anything that doesn't get answered tonight, we're going to be working to get those answers. We're going to update that FAQ. we'll make sure that that goes out along with the link once it goes live for you all to apply. So I am going to go to my FAQ here. Now, can you guys all see this? Of course, I can't see any of you guys. Now I paused it. Sorry about that.
Yeah, we can see it, Ryan.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Okay, so as Karen had mentioned, these stabilization grants are part of the American Rescue Plan Act. This is federal funding. It is different than some of the other funding that's been going out, such as the stipends through CARES or CURSA, or any of the Investing in Iowa's Child Care or Child Care Challenge funds. Those are all different, okay? So we want to make sure that folks know this is the stabilization grants that were allocated to Iowa. So to be eligible, you do have to be a licensed child care center or a registered child development home. You have to be open and providing child care services or have a temporary closure due to COVID-19 with an anticipated reopening date. That program, you will be required to show a financial loss due to the COVID-19 pandemic, either through tax documentation from 1920 or 2021. So if you are having to show a financial loss, Wendy, I'm going to ask you to give a little bit more specific information on what does that mean with the taxable income. We've had questions. Do the stipends count? If those are on your tax documentation, that is considered income. So we have gotten feedback, hey, we didn't have a loss because we got all of these stipends. I understand that it feels unfortunate if you're not then eligible because you don't have a loss or we don't take 25% of CCA. However, at the same time, I am super grateful that we were able to provide enough stipend support over the past 18 months that kept you whole so that you didn't experience that loss. Wendy, can you talk a little bit more about the documentation for financial loss?
Mm-hmm. And I think it's important to clarify also what we mean by financial loss. That doesn't mean that for the tax year you have to be in the red, like that you have to be negative. It means that we're comparing one year to another. So we're looking at 2019, what your net profit was in 2019, and then what your net profit was in 2020. If it's less than what it was in 19, even though you still made a profit, that is what we're calling a fiscal loss. And then the same would be true if you prefer to submit the 2020 versus 2021 documentation. We would be looking for the same thing. So just clarifying, like, you don't have to be in the negative to show a fiscal loss. It's just showing that COVID has affected your profitability. And so what we're looking for there is tax documentation or a profit and loss statement. We do know that some centers are a part of a larger organization and your tax documentation is done as a whole. And so that wouldn't show specifically just the child care center piece of it. So if you're in that situation, you would use a profit and loss statement specifically for your child care center operations that showed those time periods. Or if you're a program that was not fully open through all of 2019, what you can do is you can do a beginning month in 2019, like a January, and the application will allow you to pick this option. You can fill out all the information that for that month of January, and then you can fill out all the information for the month of December. And so you can show that loss even if you don't have a full tax year of 2019 to work off of, because we want to make sure that we're comparing apples to apples there. And if you weren't open for the full year of 2019, then we can't compare the full year of 2020 to 2019. And then on the child development home side of it, it would depend how you run your business. If it's part of your personal taxes, then we would be looking at that Schedule C. Or if you file separate taxes from your personal taxes for your childcare business, then we would want those taxes for the whichever 2 years you picked to compare to. Okay, sorry, and I was making you go all the way back and forth there. Just a couple other things that seem to be coming up a lot in the question. The enrollment piece. Oh, did I pop? Sorry, I apologize. My internet's being very unstable. The enrollment piece, what we're looking for is your current enrollment at the time of application. That is also how we will assess CCA percentage. We know that that varies sometimes, but to be able to do it over a long time period gets very complicated. So it has to be at time of application that we're getting these numbers. And then as far as higher enrollment than your capacity is another question that has been asked a lot, and that is perfectly okay. We understand that some programs run multiple shifts or have part-time children, and that's okay. It's not gonna trigger a compliance visit or something because you enter an enrollment that is higher than your capacity. We definitely understand that. And so were there other things that you wanted to cover, Ryan, before we opened it up for questions?
I want to go over a couple other things that we have on the existing FAQ. A lot of people want to know, how much funding am I going to get? How is that decided? So some of you may recall filling out a survey that would have gone out late 2019, which would have informed the 2020 market rate survey report. So we've linked that report to show everyone that this is based off of the feedback that we have gotten from providers such as yourself. So we will be doing initial 3-month awards calculated on the market rate survey report. And so I've got a couple examples here, and you've got a table down here that tells you basically how much you're going to get. So if you are a child development home and you are a level 2 QRS, that puts you down here at this $24.57 per day per child. If you have 7 currently enrolled, we're going to multiply that, and we're assuming everyone has kind of a working 20 days per month, and then we're going to do 3 months, that total being $10,319.40. That would be your 3-month stabilization grant that your program would receive. So Tetra Tech partners are trained and teamed up and ready to calculate these types of things, but this will give you a little bit of an example of what you can expect. We talked a little bit about what you can use the funding for. So this is personnel costs, rent, health and safety expenses, equipment, supplies, maintaining services, and mental health supports. So a couple of things, I saw a couple of questions saying, hey, can we do like improvements and maintenance and that kind of thing? If it's related to health and safety expenses, then that makes sense, or if it's needed to maintain. However, there are limitations in federal language about major renovation that you're not able to do. So Wendy, I'm thinking on this FAQ, we probably just need to put that major renovation language in here so folks know what is and is not allowed, because if anybody on the call has been doing the IICC or the Challenge Fund applications, you may have seen some of that language.
And also, just to be clear, the uses that are listed there are the only allowable uses. So like Ryan was saying, there's some flexibility in that, like the health and safety expenses, as long as it's related to health and safety in some way that you can justify that could give you some leeway, but it was very clear within the law of this, the federal law that gave us these funds, that these are the only allowable uses. And so that's not something that we're imposing upon you, but it is something that as the stewards of these funds that we have to make sure that we let you know and that we're accountable for that.
Yeah, the other thing too that I want to mention to our child development home providers, you are the sole proprietor. That's a personnel cost. Being, your salary can be considered in there. So please don't think that you have to fully invest all of your funding into the program, but that does allow for your own salary as well. So documentation that we talked about, you saw that with Karen on the website. If you remember, there was the online portal, but there was a link to like a paper application. You may want to print that off first or open that up so that you can think about, okay, this is the stuff I need before I log in. However, we know if you log in that you're going to have the ability to go back and fill out more information later. It won't let you submit until all required information is in there. Regarding the 25% for the child care assistance, if you have at least 25% enrollment of child care assistance children, then you will not be required to show that loss of income. And so that's the part that you're going to check. DHS is going to verify that with our records. So if you have 10 kids and you say 5 of them are on CCA for 50%, we're just going to go and see if that's how many kids you have attached. And so we're going to know. And as Wendy said, you're going to do that at time of application, the number of children in relation to your total enrollment. Let's see here. Funding, how long will it be available? We have $200 million that has been allocated to this effort. So initial awards are going to be 3-month periods of time, and we will look at the potential of additional awards based on what funding continues to be available. We will take applications until that funding is expended or until August 31st of this year. Wendy, anything on that?
No, nothing else is just, yeah, like we don't have a good way to gauge how quickly the funding will go. And so the reason that it has the eligibility stipulations that it does is we want to make sure those that lost more money than we could even make up with our stipends have first chance at this. And then also those that are serving our most vulnerable population, our CCA children.
Right. And it doesn't matter if your CCA kids are part-time or full-time. If they're attached to you, that is considered part of your enrollment. And let's see, there was another question and then somebody else popped, so I got to scroll back up a second here. The children who are listed online as registered with DHS for CCA, yes. So we will look in the KinderTrack system and we can see the total number of families and children attached to you, and then we'll look at that based off of the enrollment that you've identified that you have as well.
And also a couple people have asked where they find this frequently asked question document that Ryan had up. If you go to the DHS website, in the, I think the upper right-hand corner, there's a little search box, type funding opportunities, and it'll get you to the child care funding opportunities page. And that's where all the information about all of our funding opportunities for child care are always at.
Okay. So I don't know if there's a good way to do this otherwise, because everything kind of just keeps flying by me as I'm reading one, another one comes in. So let's see. How long does it take from start to finish to receive funds? I don't know that we have a good answer for that right now. if Nick or Karen, do either of you have an opinion on what that might look like?
I would say, our goal is and we've kind of gone over this too. Our goal initially is to provide information to you, within the week of you submitting your application, to either let you know that you've moved beyond the pre-screening process into our more in-depth review process, or to let you know if you're missing some piece of information that we need back from you right away. So we're estimating, staffing levels based on what we think we're going to expect from the program starting off. And so we'll adjust from there. But our goal is to at least get in touch with you within about a week to let you know, yes, you're moving on to the next round of review, or we need additional information from you. From there, there's some more steps. We obviously do the checking of, verifying the information that you've provided against what the state has in its databases and things like that. And then once we, go through that process of checking a little bit further, looking at profit and loss statements and those kinds of things, then we make a payment recommendation to the state, and then it goes through a process for payment. Typically, once these programs get up and running, that usually takes without knowing what's going to happen with this program and not trying to set any unrealistic expectations, it should take about 30 days from the time that you submit your application to the time you receive notification of funding approved. We're going to gauge that and communicate with you as often and as transparent as possible, so that it's very clear. If we start to see that there are applications that consistently have the same issue, we're going to get out in front of it and try and correct it, so that we don't keep seeing that issue over and over again. But realistically, we think there's about there's a total pool, total applicant pool, and we've based our staffing thinking that we're going to get a lot of applications right up front. And we've been training all week to get ready for this, and we have a staff of seasoned professionals that have worked on ARPA, these types of programs, for the last year. So they're very used to the pace. But our goal is about 30 days from start to finish.
Perfect. Thanks, Karen. There have been a couple other questions about out-of-state assistance that you may accept. Those are not going to count towards Iowa CCA families because we don't have the ability to verify those. So we will be looking at CCA 25% of enrollment for Iowa only. Then let's see, when you're looking at enrollment, when you're looking at CCA numbers, you're saying at the time of application. So not what it was 6 months ago, not what it was last week, because we understand that those things are going to fluctuate. So you're going to need to do it at the time of application. There is not specific documentation or requirements that you're going to have to then report back to us about how you're spending the money. You are doing an attestation in that application that says, I agree, I'm only going to spend this money in these ways. And we've got that list for you. And we're going to clarify that list a little bit more just so that everybody feels comfortable about that. But you're not going to have to report back to us how you are utilizing that money. Let's see.
Brian, this is Nick.
Yep.
A couple questions I see recurring here are centered around the provider ID, or I believe it's the Kinder ID.
Yep.
How best could someone, first identify what their provider ID is, and then what if they're changing, locations, which would maybe sometimes, I guess, provide a new provider ID? How do they account for that?
Yeah, so providers have to have been open March 2020 to be eligible for stabilization funds, because we're showing a direct loss as a result of COVID-19. And the KinderTrack number is going to be the 5-digit number that is what they're called their provider ID. Child development homes, it's going to be on your registration certificate. Licensed child care centers, that's typically how you would go in for, if you're going into KinderTrack and you're submitting payments, it's going to be that 5-digit ID. If you have questions on where to find that, you can certainly contact your licensing consultant or your compliance staff.
It's also on the upper right-hand corner of any notice of decision that you've received from DHS. So like when your license or your registration renews and you receive one of those NODs, it's always in that upper right-hand corner. And also, I know someone asked, they came in late, if they can view the webinar. Yes, we are recording this and it will get put up on the website so that you can view it later.
Great. Another question I see floating around too, revolving around the quality rating system. Can you speak a little bit about that and what it may mean for people who may not have one, maybe may have been looking to change it in the next coming months and so forth?
Yeah, so you are not required to be on the quality rating system to participate in getting a stabilization grant. However, based off of the market rate survey, you may be eligible for more funding depending on your QRS rating. So for those of you that are kind of in limbo, that's going to really be up to you. Some programs may say, I'm worried that DHS is going to go through the $200 million. I'm going to get my application in now. Or some might say, there's no way they're going through $200 million in the next 6 weeks. I'm going to wait until I get my QRS 3 because I'm going to make more money than if I'm a 1 or whatever that is. So that's really going to have to be a business decision that you as an individual or program are going to have to make. Let's see here.
I wanted to reiterate too, for those that joined late, at the beginning of the program, we showed a URL of where you can go to submit your application. That is a test site right now, and all of that data is going to be purged on Sunday before we go live with the actual application. So please wait to submit your application until Monday morning. And I believe we're going live at, is it 8 or 9 Central? I think it'll be available Monday morning at 8. So, but I just want to make sure that everybody knows to, even though we showed that URL in the demonstration, that is a test site right now, and all that data is going to be purged. So if you submit anything now, it's going to get kicked out on Sunday. So.
Thanks, Karen. Yeah, and there's a couple other kind of continuing questions about reapplication. So we're going to upfront 3 months when it's determined how much you're eligible for. Probably after 2 months, we're going to be working to say how much money do we have left and what do we think is feasible? Do we have another 3 months for every program in us? I don't know. Do we have 1 month? So those are going to be the things that DHS is going to have to continue to evaluate as we see how much each program becomes eligible for and how quickly that money starts going out the door. So once we know if a second round will be available, we're going to let everybody know that, but we do have to have money out the door by August 31st, or well, applications by August 31st so that money is out by the end of September. And that's the federal guidelines on this funding.
I've also seen quite a few people ask about verification of enrollment. And so this is based upon your attestation that you are providing correct and true information. That is the very last page of the application that Karen showed you. I know the print was tiny, you couldn't read it, but that is what it says. And so it's the same as signing your name on an application in paper, that we are counting on you to all do the correct thing and be truthful on this application. If it comes to our attention that it's not, then that would be a different matter. But unless we have reason to believe that you are not being truthful with us, we are going to take your word for it and that you filled this out correctly to the best of your knowledge.
Another question that I saw come up was around other things that you might need to attest to and what requirements you may need to follow. One of those saying like specifically about like co-payments or paying staff. So there are a couple expectations around that, that to the extent possible that your program is going to continue to pay staff at least the same amount in wages and benefits as when you submit your application. So you agree that you're not going to take any action that reduces the weekly amount of an employee's compensation during the time that you have the grant. And that includes involuntarily furloughing any employee. Also, while not required, your program should provide relief from co-payments and tuition payments for families enrolled in your program to the extent possible. So it's not a mandate that you are not accepting co-payments, but to the extent possible that this money can help alleviate some of the financial restraints on the families that you're serving, we would ask programs to do what they can to help support that. Clarifying net income, not gross income, that would be correct. That could be from 2019 to 2020 or 2020 to 21. That would, and then as Wendy talked about, there's also the option of profit and loss statements, especially for those programs. And if you haven't been open the entire year of 2020, as Wendy indicated, you could do like a beginning of the year and end of the year kind of assessment from month to month, showing how COVID impacted it. Funding awarded, the question is if it's first come, first serve basis or based on need or amount of loss. So eligibility is based on your 25% or having a loss. It's not about the amount of loss. It could be $1,000, it could be $50,000. A loss is a loss in this application. So I would anticipate that the majority of people that are eligible are going to get some type of funding given the amount that we have. Do I know that we're going to have a second round? That I can't say, but I feel fairly confident that while yes, it will be a first come, first serve because it's going to be as applications are processed when they come in, I am confident that folks are going to get funded if they're eligible. If you continue to have questions, there is going to be that help button. I think there was a contact us or something with Tetra Tech. They are going to be providing technical assistance on this stuff. If you do submit something and they feel like they don't have enough information, they will contact you. They're not just going to do a stamp of a denial. So, be sure that we're going to be collaborating. Wendy and I are working very, very closely with their team. And so we meet with them weekly. They will be reaching out to us as well to continue to provide support.
Additionally, if a few programs or a few comments have asked about tax implications, and this is considered taxable income, just like your stipends were. That is the way that it's built into the federal legislation. So unless there are additional legal changes or laws that happen in between now and then, it does count as taxable income.
Yep. And this webinar has been recorded. It will be posted for later viewing. We have the different questions. Some of them are repeats. Some I'm not sure if we got to or not, but we're going to make sure that we look at those and get that frequently asked questions document updated for you all. And then what we're going to do is on Monday, as soon as we have a live link, because Karen already said, don't use the link you saw tonight because that's a test link and it's going to be purged. We will get you a link We will get you the webinar, the updated FAQ links, all of that stuff is going to be on the DHS website. We'll get that out to you in the constant contact, the way that we have been communicating with you, not just throughout the pandemic, but prior to the pandemic as well. And if you are wondering if you are on that list, if you have not seen my name come in your email box, then you probably are not. And I would ask that you contact your CCR&R representatives to make sure that you get on that email. But given that you're on this call, I am going to assume that you somehow found access to that information. All right, and I've got 6:59, so I think we're going to end the call there, and we'll get all of this information out to you. We had almost 400 participants, which I think is amazing. Please share information that you've seen, or if you've got people asking you questions, send them the link to the FAQ, and we'll get information out there. Wendy, anything to add?
No, just thank you all for attending, and we will stay in touch.
All right, thanks so much, everybody. Have a good night.